Hey Canonites, welcome back. On Monday last week, IGN gave us our first look at a new Halo Infinite map, Streets. Our second map set in New Mombasa, the map has a number of references to locations and events from the Halo universe, and clear relations to Bazaar beyond the two just being set in Mombasa. This won't be quite like my previous lore and Easter egg videos, since I'm relying entirely on screenshots from IGN's videos for the visuals. Still, I hope y'all enjoy this look at Streets. As mentioned, Streets is the second map we've had set in New Mombasa for Halo Infinite, the first being Bazaar, and naturally, I'm sure many are curious where this map is located in relation to Bazaar. Well, it seems that Streets isn't too far away, considered to be something of a transition between the urban metropolis of New Mombasa and the older sections of the city, i.e. Old Mombasa, where Bazaar is set. Incidentally, we can spot Halig Street on this map, a street also present on Bazaar. We see several signs for Bazaar around the streets, though the placement seems largely haphazard. Still, as we can spot the Mombasa space tether in the process of being rebuilt, we can make a rough estimate of where the maps are located in relation to each other. During the flight, fans were able to determine that the tether was due east of Bazaar. In the IGN walkthrough, the tether is noticeably closer and still due east. So Bazaar, being in the West Market, is, unsurprisingly, a little west of Streets. Basically, we have Old and New Mombasa between these two maps. From there, let's dive into the Easter eggs and lore, and we'll start where IGN started, the NMTA subway station. We'd previously seen various station designs in Halo 2 and Halo 3 ODST, though I don't think with station lockers. We can also see the now iconic multipass advertised here. Around the station and just outside, we can see that this subway offers rides to Hope and Makupa stations, both locations mentioned or featured in Halo 3 ODST's Sadie's Story. Makupa Station is the stop immediately after Hope Station on the way to Magongo, north of the city. In the back, we can see a train schedule with the current time, 6:51 a.m. There's also a sign for the corner on the station's upper level. The other team spawn on this map is set around the entrance to an NMPD precinct. We can see a holographic version of the NMPD logo from ODST at the entrance, and surrounding the area we can find a number of posters advertising for the NMPD. On one, we can see the same helmet worn by NMPD officers in Halo 3 ODST. We can also find NMPD kiosks in this area, presumably for reporting incidents, such as some asshole saying NMPD on repeat. One thing that really stood out here though is this chief mural with the tagline, "A hero never dies." I think this might be a reference to the Halo CE Anniversary live-action commercial, The Living Monument, which featured the line, "Heroes never die." But that aside, this seems to have been created during the 4.5-year period after the Human Covenant War ended, and the Chief was thought to actually be missing in action. The armor here looks to be his classic Halo 3 Mark VI. This could mean that the map is set in that 4.5-year period, or it could just be a leftover from before the Chief was rediscovered in 2557. The next area I'd like to look at is the arcade game zone, which features a scorpion on its sign. Inside we find a couple games. First, there's an arcade version of Halo Infinite, complete with 8-bit MIDI music. I don't know if we should consider this canon at all, but I'd love to imagine that the Halo games exist as games in the Halo universe, likely as propaganda developed by the UNSC. Perhaps ironically, given Halo Infinite's approach to multiplayer, the buttons on this arcade cabinet are red and blue. The second game is called Slipspace Invaders, and in place of the traditional enemies, the player's ship is a Saber, and the enemy ships are Banshees, Seraphs, and Terrasks. The buttons on the cabinet are green and gold, a reference to the Chief. Speaking of whom, the sides of the cabinet feature the Chief in his Halo 2 armor and Linda in her Halo 5 Argus armor. Post-war, there's no way Oni and the UNSC wouldn't capitalize on blue team imagery on top of the Chiefs. Regardless of the in-universe reasoning though, I'm so happy to see Blue Team get some appreciation. Moreover, I love that Linda is still sporting her Gen 2 armor here, given that operational Gen 3 wasn't even really a thing until 2559 to oversimplify. And while that might seem like a no-brainer, I still haven't forgotten how often 343 and Microsoft tried to force the Chief's Mark VI mod armor into places that it really shouldn't have been. Generally though, I love the idea that retro gaming, extremely retro by their standards, is still popular 500 years on, which isn't all that crazy considering we still enjoy media from 500 plus years ago in our modern society. From there, we move away from specific locations on the map to general Easter eggs and lore strewn about. And we'll start right outside the arcade where we can find a bar or club called Kenya Vibe, and not too far away, a mini bookstore. I tried to see if I could spot any of the book titles in the footage IGN has released, but nothing really came through. I wouldn't be surprised though if these books feature a few titles that Halo fans are familiar with, not unlike Bazaar. Moving further out into the map, we can find a number of interesting tidbits. First, we can find a few familiar companies around the space, such as Vibrant Telecom, which first appeared in Halo 3 ODST, and Hinos or Hinas or something, which first appeared in Halo 2 and then again in ODST. There's also an ad for AMG Transport Dynamics' Tuk Tuk, which can actually be spotted right outside of Bazaar. Another familiar name you might spot around this map is Synoviet, a company most commonly associated with heavy machinery. We did touch on them a bit in my Easter eggs video for the Infinite Maps, their logo appearing on the map Bazaar. It seems like Synoviet has invested heavily in New Mombasa's reconstruction, and on Bazaar we saw their logo on some manhole covers. On streets, we can find even more Synoviet logos, almost as though the city is slowly becoming heavily privatized. This isn't too dissimilar from Meridian's situation, with Laying Dortmund investing heavily in the colony's recovery, basically making it a privately owned moon. The streets are littered with posters just like Bazaar, many of the same posters in many cases, but there are a few new ones just like those found at the NMPD Precinct. But of those new posters, one that really stands out is one saying New Mombasa, the future is now. It stands out to me because the image used looks like it came straight out of ODST, like a screenshot of the city's BSP geometry modified for use here. Another prominent poster we see around the area features a giraffe on the savannah in silhouette, with the phrase Garm Abe Sona. I have no idea what this means. I tried a ton of different Googling methods and I came up with nothing. Another poster we see features the words Why We Fight and depicts what looks like a Spartan 4 in Gen 3 Mark 7. This would be extremely weird given that Mark 7 isn't supposed to exist yet, but this could be written off in any number of different ways. Maybe this is actually Mark 5B or Mark 4B or even Naomi's Mark 7, among other possibilities. I would love if it were Naomi or something. The poster also kind of evokes the multiplayer Season 1 intro cinematic with a young Lorette Agrina. Maybe this poster was reused concept art. As we wrap up this video breakdown, we'll touch briefly on the various other businesses and signs around the map. These include familiar names like Mercy's, the medical place advertised on Bazaar, or Nairobi, mixed with new places like Buena or Jimmy's Books. There's an apartment complex called Morningstar Apartments, Morningstar of course a common nickname for Lucifer. Here though, I think 343 are using Morningstar as a reference to Venus, sometimes called the Morning Star when it rises above the horizon before the sun. Lucifer is simply the Latin word for morning star. Streets is also home to some interesting signs. One advertises what seems to be an energy drink called Gauss, the name of course referencing the Gauss hog, which in turn was named after Carl Friedrich Gauss. Another sign advertises a product called the Hollow Puppy, which is pretty much what it sounds like. Scrolling text along the bottom of the sign reads, "Visit cafeteria, best coffee on the streets," a nice reference to the map itself. A detail I found rather interesting is the use of a cartoon bird around the map, such as here on this decal or in this out-of-service terminal. I at first thought it might be the national bird of Kenya, the lilac-breasted roller, but it just seems to be a blue pigeon for some reason. And not the actual species blue pigeon, but a blue-colored pigeon. An odd choice in my opinion, rather than going with like a cartoon lion, since New Mombasa's seal features a lion. With that though, I think we can bring this video to a close. If I've learned nothing else from all these map breakdowns, it's that 343 is really filling these maps with stuff for fans to find, and I am so here for that. When Infinite releases, I may have to take a page from Hidden Xperia's book and break down all the lore for each map, but we'll see. For now though, what did you think of this map, and what did you think of the Easter eggs and tidbits within? Let me know in the comments below. For now, this has been Halo Canon. Stick around for the Patreon shoutouts, and I'll see y'all next time. First, I'd like to give a big thank you to our Horospus patrons. First, there's Hope, then we have Freight, Discombobulated Sycophant, Justin Montgomery, Man in the Dark, Keisha Dila, Daddy Anarchy, Great Scott Productions, Jumpy Sucks Balls, and Lone Ronin 117. Thank you all for your amazing support of the channel. Next, I'd like to thank our theoretical patrons. If you'd like to see your name here or get a direct shout out, check out patreon.com/HaloCanon. You can simply support the channel or get additional benefits such as behind-the-scenes materials, including raw audio for upcoming videos, or even shoutouts like this. All patrons now get early access to certain videos as well, and more benefits are to come. However, your continued viewership is more than enough for me. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up, and maybe even subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. If you really enjoy this, turn on that notification bell so you can be among the first to see new videos when they release. But for all my fellow Canonites, keep on being awesome.